Hawk Zone Rundown coming at you guys live a day after the game. Seahawks lose another one to fall a little further outside of the playoff race right now in the NFC West. We lose to the Vikings, and we are going to break it all down for you. We're going to get into some other stuff too, just bigger picture stuff with this team, and talk a little more about roster after we break down yesterday's game for you. And then again, we want you to flood the comment section, get some super chats in there, get some comments in there. We're going to have fun tonight and try to answer as many questions and comments that you guys have thrown at us. So before we get into all that, guys, if you haven't done it yet, go down, sub to the channel, like the videos, share the videos, and hit the notification button as well, so you know when live shows like this come up. So we're breaking it all down for you on the other side.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game.
And it's run. Get off me.
DK.
Yes, sir.
Hey, it's John Schneider with the Seattle Seahawks.
And Washington's got a lead. Leon Wilson
Geno Smith and QB. The Seahawks are going to host the NFC Championship.
Every year, the NFL does. Is it going to be
You've
another
got to
9
look for
and 8?
players who've got to finish some things.
They have to fix the offensive
Part of the
line.
success and part of
Ambition of being the LOB
Want to hear? That's trading DK Metcalf.
Play him aggressive.
This is the Hawk Zone Rundown with Ryan and Bryce.
This is the Hawk Zone, guys. Get your comments in, get them in early so we can get at them soon and start having some fun with those. But the Hawks lose another 27-24 to the Vikings. We're going to recap this game. Bryce, it was one of those games. First of all, we both had them losing, but it was, you almost nailed the score. I had them 24-16. They put up a few more points, but I think the thing is that we felt, okay, coming off the Green Bay game, we just can't pick them. The offense has got to show us a little more. This game, though, sort of for me sums up the team in a way. Like this game, I feel like a lot of it was self-inflicted for me. I felt like this game was for the taking, even though this team was 12-2. Minnesota's riding hot. We had chances. Mental mistakes came in. For me, the play calling again is another thing we'll talk about. There was 2 drives that looked all-star. And then for me, the rest just was like, what are we doing again? Mix in a couple of bad picks and a couple of should have been picks. It was just one of those games. And again, we had the lead going down late. We had a chance. But in a nutshell, it was just mental errors, self-inflicted. Man, we were falling out of this playoff race. There's a lot of questions again, but man, you were down at the game, so you were watching it live. Give us the energy down there, the overall feel. What was your assessment?
So it was interesting because after the Packers game, there's the whole thing about, how many away fans are going to show up and the energy's gone. It was actually a Seahawk crowd again. And sitting where I was, which is in like one of the north corner of the end zone, the purple that you saw in the stadium really was in the 100 section, like right behind the Viking bench. And it was basically located to only that area. It wasn't really greatly distributed throughout. And they didn't get awfully loud throughout the game. Really, they didn't. And part of that was because I think Seattle kept this game to be a game rather than getting completely blown out. But being down there, I'll have 2 things. I got to walk back on some stuff I've said about Geno from earlier in this offseason. Because I got a way different appreciation watching the game live and from where my vantage point was of seeing him and how this offense operates and how the Vikings defense reacted to it. Also just from being around fans that were, I could tell just, general football fans and the things they were saying around me, which kind of blew me away in a way. And then obviously watching the patheticness, which is Ryan Grubb calling plays for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, Ryan Grubb, man. Let's talk about that because, like I said, there was a couple drives that looked really good. And by the way, you and me, and we're gonna get into this. We differ a little bit on Geno. So we'll talk about that. So, guys, get your comments in about before we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about the quarterback situation, but get your comments in about Geno. What's the future hold for this team? Would you like to see a re-sign? With we thought we thrown around that 2-year extension, but hey, they got to go draft a guy. So, guys, what's your thoughts? Because sometimes, like you saw during the game, they had a couple beautiful drives. It was a great balance of run the football and throw the football, and especially what was it, 2-minute drill going in the half, bang bang, DK and JSN on display. Great to see it, but too many things in between that were head scratchers. I mean, I'm looking at Ryan Grubb again, and I know you and I talked about before we came out on there. We're not going to spend all show because I think
We could.
good, and that's the thing, and that's what I'm worried about because it just kind of gets carried away because you could have just another show on just what are we doing play call wise. But again, it was one of those things where Ken Walker's back, and you're expecting a little more. Ken's another guy we're going to talk about in the show as well, guys. Want to hear your thoughts. What do you think Ken Walker's future is here? There's a lot of questions because for me, and we talked about guys that we used to love seeing run the football in a Seahawks uniform. Chris Carson came to mind for me, and I just loved how he was a downhill first guy hit. He's not going downhill runner, kind of what Pete liked, that kind of style. And that's kind of the style you think should be here still. Ken Walker back, but kind of reverting back to the style he's used to, where he kind of hits it and then he dances a little bit, thinking this is college and he can beat everybody on the outside or something. It's becoming frustrating. But again, they're just not running the football. And when they did, there was positive yards. I don't know if you pulled up the stat there. I think they were averaging 4.5 a carry. But again, he just refuses to stick with the run. And this was a tight football game, man. At one point, we had the lead late in the game. So to me, when you watch those 2 drives that were executed beautifully, that was your best balanced offense. But again, he continues to do head scratching things. And to me, dude, we talked about it. We have 2 games left in the regular season. They got to win at least. I feel like they got to win both games if they're going to win the playoffs. But head scratching moves, I feel like I don't know how you bring this guy back. Man, what was your thoughts watching the offense specifically yesterday?
So, as I alluded to at the start there, I was sitting around, just general football fans and, got to know some of the people that were sitting around me and had some, good conversations. And they knew what Seattle was doing offensively by the way they lined up. Given the down and distance, they're going to throw it. And that was the majority of what everyone figured. They're going to play action here because Walker's going away from the tight end and, they're going to go weak side play action. And the thing is I'm sitting there going, I already know this stuff because I've watched the All-22 and we've talked about it all year. And I'm just a film nut that way. And sitting and listening to the average fan know that that's what Seattle is going to do is a massive indictment on your offensive coordinator. Like you get people that guess like, oh, they're going to pass. It's a pass. Like these people literally knew what type of pass it was going to be. Like that's horrible. If your offensive coordinator at the NFL level is having average fans call out what his plays are going to be, and you can imagine what the defensive coordinator on the Vikings and Brian Flores probably already knows. And that's where when you look at and we'll get into, I'll talk the Grubb part here first. Grubb for me is in over his head. And he doesn't translate to the NFL at all. No. And this is a stat that drove me absolutely nuts. And I made sure to bookmark it because it was just something that blew my mind. And I was sitting there going like, we can't really be talking about someone actually doing this, but K9 had 25% of his workload in the run game within the first 28 seconds of the game in the first drive for Seattle. He had 6 carries for 58 yards.
Yeah, not good enough.
How do you go away from that? You are averaging 6 yards a carry, and you go away from it. There was a sequence, and I think it might have been A.J. Barner's touchdown drive where he caught the touchdown. They turned to Kenny Mack, and they went 9-yard run, 4-yard run, first down.
Again, Kenny looked good. Again,
Kenny Mack fits this offense.
You and me were screaming for Kenny.
Yep.
2 years ago, like the minute he got drafted, get him on the field. Yeah, it's I just don't think he's wired that way, man. Because Mike McDonald can't not be having conversations. He continuously says we need to run the ball more. So to me, it wouldn't make any sense if
there
not
is a
meetings.
Philosophical issue. And
philosophical, but do you also think he's just not wired? Like he might think, yes, I'm going to come in, Mike. I'm going to run the football more. But then throughout the game, he kind of just reverts back to like being pass happy, being in the shotgun, looking for his studs, and not sticking it with it consistently. Like to me, that is just either ingrained or you're just like, I got to get back to college football and I don't understand how to be ultra successful as an OC in the NFL.
Well, and the thing for me was watching, because, we've heard Rob Staten and other people talk, and we've talked about it on our show too about, if Sam Darnold's available in the offseason, maybe Seattle goes and tries to reset their quarterback room by bringing in a younger version of a Geno in a way in Sam Darnold. Watching Sam Darnold, I wasn't overly impressed on Sunday. It was like watching 2022 Geno Smith, where he had a comparable line that has some grit and can do a couple things. Not great, comparable, and weapons, which is what Geno had in 2022. And their numbers are almost identical to speaking to that. But the biggest difference is he has a NFL play caller calling plays and sequencing the drives. And it's like Sam Darnold's not some freaking messiah at quarterback all of a sudden. He just has a guy that puts him in the right positions, in the right play calls, creates balance. Like Aaron Jones runs for 4 yards. Aaron Jones runs for 4 yards. Well, it's 2nd and 5.
What was Green Bay doing last week? Right?
It's the same thing. It's not rocket science.
No. Like and the good teams are doing it. There's a balance in the NFL now. It's revert. We're higher on the run game. Not that the running back market's going to be that much bigger, but the importance of the run is there.
It's like here's the thing. Teams go too high. That's the one thing that they're doing. A lot of teams are running too high.
Yeah, exactly.
You gash too high by running the football. That's what you do.
Right.
When Seattle played in the Legion of Boom days, their cover 3, Cam was kind of around the box, and they shut down the run and then forced teams to throw into their cover 3 with their long corners and Brandon Browner and, Brian Maxwell and Earl Thomas. And that's how they, set it up. Now, here's the thing. The Seahawks have ways that they can run the ball with this O-line. Yes, this O-line struggles. They
played okay yesterday, though.
They were fine. You're opening when you're averaging 6 fucking yards a carry.
The best drives yesterday were the balanced drives. Where they like you said, they weren't running for 1 yard per carry, where it's like, okay, there's absolutely nothing we can do here. We have 3 dynamic running backs on this team now.
You do, but the thing with Grubb, man, and I'm just going to come out and flat say, I would be okay if they fired Grubb today went with Jake Peets the last 2 weeks and see if you got something.
That's what I'm saying. Debut him or just let him audition.
It doesn't work, and it's not going to work.
Not going to work.
And the thing is you got people that are like, oh, well, it's the first year. They got to figure each other out. No, you don't. You've got a big enough sample size with this dude. It's not going to all of a sudden get better next year. You can add a line. He has a philosophical issue with running the fucking football.
It's wiring.
He wants to throw it. He runs when he's told to. You can't be an offensive coordinator that way. It doesn't work. You have to distribute balance.
No, I think we're go ahead.
It just drives me nuts because the thing that I've talked to with other people, even when I was down there, people I know that I've talked to about what it was like at UW, DeBoer forced him to run. When they were going back and forth, DeBoer would sit there and be like, okay, what play, what are we going with? And he'd give him, like, they bounced the ideas off each other, which works fine if you have a head coach that has play calling history. But when you have a head coach that's a defensive minded head coach, your OC needs to understand what his job is, how to complement the defense. Grubb has no idea. Grubb thinks that he's in shootouts every game with this pass happy philosophy. That's not how this defense is built by Mike McDonald. It's meant to grind games out. It's meant to suffocate the other team with a lead.
Even the last score, they didn't take a lot of time off the clock. They gave Minnesota, the Minnesota was left with a ton of time. So, to your point of like grind out the clock, yes, they scored, but they scored quick. We're going to get into excuses is something we're going to talk about. And, should we be making excuses for certain people on this team, coaches and players? We're going to get into that. But man, like we said, we can talk 2 more hours on Grub. Let's switch it over to a couple other things about this game. Defensively, it's not like they lit it up, right? There's some issues there. We're talking cornerbacks again, man. It's going to be another thing that we got to talk about. Another guy that, again, I don't want to spend too much time on, but another guy that just, you can talk about 4.2, 4.3 speed and long and lengthy. If you don't have a dog in you and you don't have the IQ and awareness, first of all, you can't pay that guy. And second of all, you're not going to fit in this culture what a guy like Mike McDonald wants to do. Listen, man, I can go get a bunch of guys off a 100-meter track team that run 4.2s and 4.1s. Doesn't make them really, really good cornerbacks. He's proven that he's just not that guy, man. You need that guy over there. And to me, Spoon is that guy. Spoon is that dude. And there's just never been a question about that. Riq, just to me, like, come on, man. I would like to see him not on this roster next year, because it's not about like, okay, let's just keep him in our back pocket. He's got this talent, or what's the ceiling? Like, what are you hanging on to that for? To me, it's more the mentality and the nonchalantness. We can talk about the last one of the last plays with JJ. People will say, well, some of that was that was a cover 2, but then what was he doing in the cover 2? If it was a cover 2, didn't jam him, kind of covered him 30 yards downfield and then let him go. Like, what was he doing then if he wasn't supposed to go with him? The whole thing was just weird. It looked lazy. It's not as if this was the one time. He got torched against Green Bay the week before. He's shown that he can't tackle. He doesn't want to tackle. He's showing that he can get driven in the end zone by short receivers. The whole thing is a mess to me. Again, I don't want to spend a long time on Riq, but what else you seen from this defense? Touch on Riq and overall, what did you take away from the D yesterday?
So the defense is a whole outside of Riq. They started slow again, which they've kind of done against better teams.
Right.
But they started to come alive. Jaron Reed, priority offseason signing, sneaky low one, but he's a guy you need to bring back in this fold.
You can get him cheap. You can get him cheap.
He helps Leonard Williams. Robertson Harris, again, did his role really well. Ernest Jones played well, almost had a pick if he hadn't slipped, actually. They got to Darnold a couple of times. Josh Jobe had moments where being locked up with Jefferson, you could see why he's a third corner. Kobe Bryant, Julian Love, they did a good job. Nothing crazy over the top, beat them until the end of the game. Riq Woolen doesn't have it. And even to find out, I don't know if you heard this, but post-game, Mike McDonald was talking in his presser and basically said Riq didn't start because he violated team rules. The week before, we're hearing out through Twitter, and whether it's true or not, that Riq was out partying before the Green Bay game, like that weekend. Because
I'm fine with the partying if you show up to play. I could care less. I could care less, dude. He's a 23-year-old cat, whatever he is. If you're ready to ball, I don't care what you're doing. But if you show up like that, then there's an issue. These are young dudes, right? I mean,
I 100% understand that. But it's a different story when you're the 2013 Seahawks and Legion of Boom guys where you're dominating.
That's my point. You better be dominating.
But the difference between them and the guys that are not in that, you're literally about to play Green Bay. We'll go back to last week. You're going to play Green Bay. You're about to fight for your ability to make the playoffs.
Right.
Not the time to be out partying at all. I'm sorry. It's not.
Again, I agree with you because the way he's playing. Lawrence
but
Taylor
that's Reek.
partied
It's
his
been
Lawrence
Reek since his
Taylor
rookie
partied
year.
his
Reek
ass off.
hasn't been good.
I agree, but I'm just saying, like, to me, whether he went out or not, like I said, if you're a dog and you got that in you, you're 23, you can be out all night, man. Especially a top level athlete, you can be out all night. But if you're not performing, like I said, if Big Cat was out, are you hearing about it? Who cares?
But here's the thing.
Guys bringing
you
it.
are hearing about it because it's clearly a team violation not to do it, because part of their thing, and Hankins alluded to this, is Mike McDonald makes the team stay in a hotel the night before the game. That's what he does. You don't break the team rules.
No,
and that's the issue.
I think, but like I said, if he was balling, this would be a non-issue. You wouldn't care. It's the fact that he looked like he was out partying the night before.
But he hasn't been good all year.
Like I 100% agree. I don't want him on this roster. But like I said, I think
Reek's going to get traded. That's what I'll say right now. I think he's going to be traded in the offseason.
I agree with you. I think he's gone one way or another, whether it's cut, whether you pick up. I mean, shit, if we can pick up a draft pick for him, I'll take it. Like, just get a pick. But I agree with you, dude. Like, I'm not disagreeing. What I'm saying is that with whatever you want to say, if you're breaking team rules, if it's the whole mentality, the nonchalant, there's no dog in the dude. There's no like killer instinct in him. There, and then even honestly, even the breakup early in the game, and I don't know what side of the end zone you were at, he got lucky, dude. Again, we talk about the thing I love is like they talk about, and they talk about this in the rookie season, the makeup speed. And then it was like there's reports where he almost like would bait QBs because guys talk about my makeup speed. But that's not something you always want to hear about, because that's telling me you're getting your ass burnt all the time. And now you got to go chase them. It doesn't work out all the time, man. You talk about guys, there's receivers that are running 4.3, Reek. And that the one that he sort of, quote unquote, broke up. Was it Addison? I think he could have.
Yeah, but it wasn't he didn't break it up.
I'm saying, but then he does his little celebration like, that was me.
I know.
Dude, you got lucky. Addison should have came down with that ball. I watched the replay. It was one of those things. I hate when DBs do that. Like, dude, you got burnt. You got lucky. Now you're doing your little celly. Again, then we see the other things he's out doing. I agree with you, dude. I have no problem if guys go out if they're ready, if they know I'm ready to go. The second you don't, and whether it's not a team violation or not, if it's not a team violation, listen, if coach is like, go party. But again, if you show up like that, then, the second you know that I can't show up and ball, then that's on you. And you have a commitment to the group. Like you said, if any LOB guys got caught doing that, they'd be held accountable by somebody on that team.
And that's where I look at Reek on the touchdown he gave up, which I will note, sadly, in our preview show, I basically predicted Jefferson was going to catch the winning touchdown at some point under 4 minutes in the game.
You said Addison or Jefferson.
Or Jefferson. Right? So it was one of the two that was gonna do it.
It was so bad.
Reek didn't even run through the end of the play. He gave up.
He jogged, bro. And that's what I'm saying.
And
what was he doing? He didn't jam them. So if people want to say it was cover 2, he didn't disrupt anything. He's jogging 30 yards down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if it was a clear cover 2, it would be a lot more obvious to like, okay, that wasn't.
And even if it's cover 2 man or press, like get your fucking hands on Jefferson.
That's what I'm saying.
He's their best weapon. Who do you think Darnold's going to go to? Like, that's what drove me nuts. Like, I
want to see somebody pop Jefferson yesterday, and that was the thing. No, I'm being serious.
I know,
because he was taunting the shit out of the Hawks, and do something, right? And that's why when people talk about DK, and at least DK brings that fight, and he was showing a little bit of that yesterday, right? But Reek shows none of that, none of it.
I think Reek will be traded in the offseason for, if they're lucky, a 5th round pick. They'll move on, and I think this is where they're going to have to, like we talked about it, we got, defense starting slow at home.
Yeah.
And we'll get into it a little bit later with the guys that we think that may or may not be here come the end of the season in the off season. But I think they're going to have to address corner more than people realize in the draft, and go get some other guys, because Reek doesn't want to tackle. Reek just wants to be there. And he's one of those guys that you had on your, like, college team or high school team that just wanted to show up, wear the jersey, and be a part of it. He doesn't really give a damn anymore, it seems like. And he's subtweeting Brock Heward and stuff, and doing like, dude, let your play do the talking, like you said. Shut up, go play football at this point. Don't run your mouth because you don't have anything to back it up with. Like, if you could back it up with some good play, different story, but you don't right now, Riq Woolen. Like, go, and prove us wrong over these last 2 games. Go be a lockdown corner that they were
Dude,
talking
even
about
if
you
he
were
wasn't a
supposed to be.
lockdown, even if he put his head down, hit somebody, you'd be fired up. Like, okay, you care, but like you said, you and I wouldn't have an issue with that because we're like, we know that's not who he is, but he better be a blanket. And he's proven to be none of it. And he's proven to be this. Like you said, high school guy, dude, that guy could walk on a high school field when he was in high school and dominate with just showing up probably without his cleats on. Right. And that's the problem sometimes with what's your work ethic. Right. And I don't know his work ethic. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I do. But what he's showing now on this defense, it just doesn't feel like he's the right fit. Maybe he's the right fit somewhere else. Maybe another coach gets on, but I really feel like on this Mike McDonald, Mike's got to be sitting there like, this is not a guy in my system. This guy doesn't fit my system. Spoon's a guy that's in my system. Ernest Jones, a guy that Mike's fired up that came over, is a guy that's going to work in his system. A Leo, Kobe Bryant coming up and hitting guys. We came up from the safety spot there and just laid it on I think it was on Jones there. Fired up, right? Like, that's what you want to see. That's the defensive guys I want on this team, man. Just awesome to see. But yeah, so I agree. We're in agreement, man. This is going to be a point of emphasis again. But yeah, overall, man, I mean, if you look at this now, where we sit, the Rams win, right? So now we're a half what was that? Is it a half a game?
We're basically, we're essentially banking. The Cardinals have to win on Saturday for us to have any means of it mattering.
And I know you and I talked off air. Like I said, hey, they lost and now they're out. And you said, well, they want to play Spurs. Look, I agree. It's still a divisional game. So, you want to say, hey, we want to beat these guys for just the sake of, hey, they're in our division and we want to win. So I think the Cardinals are still going to play hard. I agree with that. But again, a position where we're in again, I think last year we had to hope another team lost, but we got a short week, man. We come up, we play the Bears, and then you got to win that one. And then if you do, I don't know what the scenarios are, but you go and you got to beat the Rams. So yeah, it's interesting. But for me overall, man, just the way this team's playing, look, if we make the playoffs, great. We're going to throw our Seahawks hat on and jerseys and get fired up for the playoffs. We will. But it just doesn't have the same feeling anymore. I think it feels like if we got in there, we'd be one and done, and the same story kind of continues. And then we have to say, we got to address all these issues again. It's a tough spot, man. Like, I mean, we can move over and kind of talk about it a little bit. I'm going to pop this up right here before we get going. Peter, we appreciate the super chat, man. 1 of 2 favorite Hawks podcasts. Happy holidays, guys. Yeah, we appreciate that, man. That's
Thanks,
high
Peter.
praise because there's a lot of guys out there doing a lot of good things. So, Peter, appreciate that. Happy holidays to you too, man. But yeah, you and I sort of talked about, excuses, and I just want to jump into a little bit of, it's such a weird combination because to me, it's like it's John Schneider, Ryan Grubb, and Geno Smith. And not that these guys are, all these guys are problems or solutions, but I look at it like when I look at Geno, and there's a lot of good things he's done. But when you look at it now, and it's been 3 years since the Russell trade, and you felt like then it was like, okay, we won that trade, right? You got a haul, and you're like, let's go. And then you signed Geno, and you felt like here's a bridge. But now we're at a point, man, where we could easily finish 3 years in a row 9-8, not right in the middling part. And then you say, man, that Russ thing starts like you felt like at this point, and I know you made a coaching change, but you feel like we should have been a little further along. You're looking at Russ now in the playoffs with Pittsburgh, and I know they got a different style. They got a style we like. Run the ball, play defense. Russ sits back, just don't make mistakes. He made a few last game. But so I look at it like I just don't want to make excuses for anybody, because I know there's been a lot of it for Grubb. There's been a lot of for Geno. And I feel like people are not now giving many for John, but for the longest time, there's been excuses for him because we look back at the things he did 10, 11, 12 years ago. And he's done some good in-season trades and that, but where do you stand on the excuses for guys? Say Geno, I know we talking about it. For me, I just look at that interception touchdown ratio, and it's a tough one to swallow. And for me, it's really come down. I know you've broken down film and all this, but when I just look at it from the outside, say my biggest thing is the decision making. I know people could say, well, if we get the O-line in here, we get a different play caller, and I know some of that can be improved. But I just think, when are we gonna stop making excuses for him and say we got to put some stuff on him? Like, some of those picks were bad, man. And look, he cost us the Rams game. To me, that was Geno. Red zone, but we can't. And we heard excuses then. We heard excuses like, oh, he's falling off here, or pressure here. Or he's making red zone picks, man. Where are you falling on the excuses? I guess touch on Geno first. And what do you see future-wise here for this team at that spot to get going? Because we'll touch in on. I want to touch in on some teams that have went the young quarterback route and have now sort of leapfrogged this franchise, and we're kind of sitting middle. We're middling. We're a middling franchise now.
So, watching Geno in person, like, I'll have to backtrack a little bit on what I've said in the offseason. Like, I was really ready to, like, play this out, move on from Geno, go young. No one in this draft excites me to the point of you're inserting a quarterback and starting. And I'm going to be brutally honest. A lot of these young quarterbacks that come in, they're not ready to play, even if they are a number 1 overall pick. CJ Stroud has had regression points this year. Bryce Young struggled this year. And then all of a sudden, now that he's been able to sit, watch Andy Dalton, and they figured out how to use him, now he's starting to have some success in Carolina because they built an O-line in front of him. And that's the thing, playing quarterback, you go as well as your O-line plays. Truly, you do, because the problem for Geno, and this is what I saw on Sunday in person, Ryan Grubb, and I'm going to put John Schneider on blast for this, have asked Geno Smith to play perfect football. Like, you cannot screw up, because if you screw up, we're screwed. There are moments in a game where you can put that pressure on your quarterback. It cannot be 24/7. It can't be every single week of the season. It can't be every single play. And that's what it's turned into for Seattle. So you're right. It's now caused us to be a middling team. The interception rate goes up. Everything goes up. Here's a point. Griffin Sturgeon, who we've had on our show, see Mike's spin move on X. Geno with a satisfactory coaching, good wide receivers, and a bottom 5 O-line. So that was 2022. So we're going to talk about this with Shane Waldron when he first came into Seattle. And they actually, like we talked about, K9 ran well that year. Rashad Penny had moments before he buggered up his leg again, was doing well. Seattle's offense finished 10th in the NFL. Overall, they were the 10th best offense in the NFL. This year, you've had below average coaching, like unsatisfactory coaching from Ryan Grubb. You still have good receivers, JSN, DK Metcalf, the receiving core is good. A bottom 5 O-line. You are now the 20th best offense in the NFL. So the bad coaching and the inability to create proper play sequences, run the football, do those things, directly has an impact on your quarterback. This is where, for me, I want to see Geno with an offensive line and actually an NFL play caller again. Not Ryan Grubb, not some gimmick college shit, which, hey, I was one of the first people that was really happy when they hired Ryan Grubb.
No, we were both happy because we said, let's give it a shot.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. See what it's going to be. And
it's fine.
I'm allowed to walk back on that statement and say it has been an utter fucking disaster.
You're not walking back on it. I think you if he was here for 2 more years, you'd be livid. It's fine. Come in for a year and see you later. Like, that's fine. It didn't work as long as they recognize it.
You don't have a better, and this is the thing when you pose this question to Seahawks social media, whatever you want to put it out there as Twitter, whatever. What's your plan if you move off of Geno? If you were to cut Geno Smith in the offseason, who comes in here, and are you okay as an entire organization not sucking for just a season? and then hoping you're going to nail a quarterback who may still be awful in his rookie year. What happens if you go do Bryce Young, like a Bryce Young situation? You move off of Geno, you're crappy for a year. You don't have anyone to draft this year because there's not a quarterback worth drafting between Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. I'm not impressed with either one of them. They have things that are make them good, but they're not knockout candidates. They're not a CJ Stroud type quarterback.
No.
Or Jordan Love or one of those type of guys that has now ascended into this role. So, okay, what are you going to do? You don't want to turn it over to Sam Howell because we saw what that looked like. And, Sam Howell just does not look the part. What do? Bring in Will Levis? You go get Sam Darnold.
My big thing is like, why hasn't he just done it before? Like that. This is my part of my gripe. It's like you got off Russ, and you didn't draft a guy for the last 3 seasons. That's the frustrating part. And now you say, well, look at this draft. It sucks. Okay, but that's whose fault is that? Like we had the 5th overall pick, right? With the 5th overall pick because of the Russ trade. Go get a quarterback, move up, sell the freaking farm. You haven't done anything but go 9-8 since then. So to me, you've given up stupid amount for Jamal Adams. Why didn't you move up? Go get the 2nd pick. Go get the 1st pick. Go get the 4th pick. I would have been fine with Anthony Richardson. People can knock it all they want, but he would have been sitting behind Geno for 2 seasons. So people can say, like, he got thrown in the fire. So I'm not even looking at what he's doing right now, because like you mentioned, you sit behind a guy. Bryce Young sat behind Dalton. Love obviously sat behind a Hall of Famer. So that's what you and I like. But my gripe, and I understand what you're saying, this draft, what do you do? I'm not saying outright cut the guy, but my thing is that if he's here, in my opinion, whether you get a different play caller or I just see the decisions. I just feel like we'll middle. Geno's who he is, and that's fine. But me and Schneider, there's got to be more heat. Dude, why haven't you done anything to grab a quarterback? You look at Jaden Daniels. You look at CJ, Penix, Love. Go get a guy. It should have been done.
Mookie brings up a good point. Asking Geno to do everything is exactly what they did in 2016 and 17.
I agree. I agree.
And his turnovers went up, and they middled out as a 10-win team. It's too much to ask of a quarterback. So now you're not asking, like, I get what you're saying about interceptions, but there's a direct correlation between a quarterback's decision-making and the pressure he feels to be perfect because you haven't given him anything else. You look at, and this is something Peter wrote. He goes, counter, some of this is on Geno. Part of me thinks 2022 was Geno and the league not knowing him. I agree to a point, but even in 2023, Geno still was 20 touchdowns, missed a couple games, 20 touchdowns.
But he's still he's always put together an inconsistent season.
He has also led the inconsistency. The first half of 2022, we couldn't run the ball.
Okay,
the first half of 2022, we couldn't run the ball.
But is this a surprise from Geno? Like, did Geno have a first 5 years in the league? He was on fire with a different organization. Bounce. To me, what I'm just saying is that it's fine if he's here for 2 more seasons, but let's not expect us to win 12, 13 games. Even if we have different pieces in here, that's just where I'm coming from. Because you look at the first year, you talk about how we were 10th in offense. He still had an inconsistent half of a season. Same with last season, another whole inconsistent half. And then this season, it's just, I agree, poor play calling. So it's going to lead to just, more interceptions, worse offense, et cetera, et cetera. I agree with all that. But what I'm saying is this is who you have. I'm not saying it's a horrible thing. You're not going to win 3 games, 4 games. Exactly, because he's good enough. He's good enough. But this is what you're going to get. So if you're fine with that, or if Hawks fans are like, look, I'm good for 2-3 more years. Because what my point is, it's not like there's a guarantee. Hey, he's here for 2. We're going to have a quarterback in the future. So that's where I'm putting some stuff on John, where it's like, why didn't we like that? I think you're missing what I'm trying to say. John, I'm including Schneider in this. He hasn't addressed it. Like I mentioned, guys, that teams have you look at the Texans, they were shit. And they went and got this guy. CJ's our guy. You look at Washington, Dan Quinn, this new culture. And look, we love Mike McDonald, but they go get Jaden Daniels. And I understand they had a better pick in the draft, but we had a 5th overall pick. We could have done what we could to say if John said, I want a quarterback, but it wasn't a thing for him. It wasn't. He didn't take one at all. So it was like, we're taking Spoon and JSN, and they're great players. But you agree? I mean, the most important
Here's my
position is
thing, and
quarterback.
this is my, we're going to talk about the Geno thing, and it'll be a conversation in the offseason, I'm sure. The smart play for Seattle is to extend him for 3 with the option to get out, but you have to have a succession plan, which means, yeah, you know what? Maybe you do take a guy in round 2 through 5 this year. You start taking swings at that apple, but you don't turn around and go, okay, we're going to move off of him to Sam Darnold.
Well, what if they did do that? Say they did it. Say they cut him and they bring in Sam. Say they bring in Sam. I'm not talking what the dollar amount would be, but just say Sam Darnold is the next quarterback. Why would that be an issue? Like, what I'm saying is
because you're talking about the exact same thing you're talking about now with Sam Darnold.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that, okay, so but you still have a younger guy. Geno's getting older, and what I'm saying is that you're going to be a middling franchise, but maybe you get something else because, and I'm not saying, look, I don't expect their record to be what Minnesota's is, but my point is that I feel like John is got a little comfortable with Geno as well, because he knows we're not going to win 3 games. The pressure's just mounting on this guy because you go 9-8, you go 9-8, you go 9-8. It's because he's a good enough quarterback, even if you have a bad offensive line, even if you have a bad play caller. Because we saw 2 really good drives, or 3 really good drives yesterday, but then we see the inconsistencies. I'm just
here's
saying
my caveat to you in a way, and you kind of, in a way, spoke to what I'm trying to get across. So you say bring in Sam Darnold, right? You bring in Sam Darnold. What has Sam Darnold shown you? Because you mentioned the fact that he didn't light it up his first couple of years in the league. He really didn't with New York. Then he's gone and been a backup in Carolina and San Francisco, and now he's ended up in a situation with a half decent O-line, weapons on the outside, and a good play caller. The O-line is not top 10 with Minnesota. We're
going to have a different play caller next year. We are
I know, but the thing is there's 2 caveats in that is what I've been screaming about Geno, and I get what you're saying about the younger Sam, but this is my caveat. You have a semi-decent O-line and a run game, and Sam Darnold is putting up the numbers he's putting up. He is not a superior quarterback to Geno Smith.
No, I'm not.
Smith, but this is what I'm saying is, so like you move to that direction. You've done the same thing unless you address the O-line, and which I think John Schneider, like I will be brutally honest, and I sat down and had coffee today with Dan Viens in Seattle from Seahawks Forever.
Sure.
We talked about this. This will be the first offseason for John Schneider where he is literally auditioning to keep his job.
You and I talked about that. I mean, no question about it, because Pete's not here. Like that was that was the safety net he had for years. It's a Pete and John show, and Pete had all this control, right? So it all the attention, anything that John did, even like the Jamal trade or the disaster that was, or the Jimmy Graham move that just didn't work out, it was always attached to Pete Carroll. So John, of course, now he is uber under the spotlight because now Mike's because even last year it was like you brought in a whole new coaching staff, so the expectations were okay. Well, let's just see. I just look at it like I wouldn't lose sleep because I don't have attachment to Geno Smith. I think he's good enough to get you to where you are right now, but I don't see us going further. Even he's had 3 years here. Even with what I'm saying is that I think your expectations are let's just get a good O-line and he's gonna rip. I don't expect us to have.
I'm not saying he's gonna light it up, but I'm saying you're talking about a Minnesota team that when we looked at the beginning of the year, no one had Minnesota pegged for 13 wins. We didn't. We had them as a middling team.
No one's talking.
You got a guy that's a veteran that had a good play caller and an O-line, and they reached 13 wins with a complementary defense.
Sure.
We have the defense. You get the O-line. There is a chance, yes, that Geno could. I'm not saying he's going to win the Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying
there's a chance that you do up your win total by at least a couple of games with a comparable O-line. And this is like the point I'm trying to make. I agree with you 100%. There has to be a succession plan. Geno is not the future. but Geno's not the problem. There's other problems that John Schneider is more of the problem than anything at this point.
I agree. It starts from the top.
And
but
so,
again,
like,
but that's why when I brought it up, I said, like, I'm going to pose this to you. Why did he not address it for the last 3 years? Why did you make the Russ move? Like when you look at it, why did you make, and maybe he, maybe it was done because Russ wanted out, but you make the Russ move because immediately, in my opinion, you got to look for that next guy right away. And I'm not to say that you don't sign Geno, but my point is that he was supposed to be the bridge guy for 2-3 years. Now we're talking another 2-3 years. That's my problem. And yes, that's not Geno, that's John. But again, why are we? And I
agree with you.
But so real quick. So now if what you're saying is true, because I believe a lot of it, like I do think they will. I think that the market's not big for the guy. They're going to get him at a certain price where they can extend him. But then you're talking about possibly here for 6 seasons as a starter. That wasn't supposed to be the plan. I mean, at least not as Seahawks fans looked at it. You thought this guy would be here for a couple. You moved on from your franchise guy in Russell Wilson. And this guy wasn't supposed to be the successor.
No, he wasn't. I think part of the 3 years, though, and this is where the caveat you got to bring in is Pete still. I don't know if Pete wanted to go with a rookie quarterback necessarily. And I'm not saying that it's all on Pete. I think it was a collaboration between the two. And I think right here, Peter puts up a good one. This is the problem with John. He's waiting for something that might not ever come in the draft. Look at the quarterbacks he's gone to the pro days of. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. He did go to Sam Darnold's. But you have to start taking bites of the apple. And that's why, we'll get into it in the offseason here in a bit.
Right.
But 2 of the quarterbacks that I would be okay with Seattle taking, if you were to take a flyer on one that develops for a couple of years, are like Riley Leonard and Will Howard. They're both big guys. They both have the ability to play, but they need to develop. And that's what you're getting. If you go with Geno for another 2 or 3, you have to. And I agree with you 100%. You have to draft somebody. You have to start taking bites of that. And it should be every year. If Will Howard isn't showing, you take another one. If you get to a point where they lose more games and you're up at the top, then yes, you 100%. But
I'm surprised they didn't take one this year. And here's the thing, too. The Pete point real quick. It was about Pete not want to play with a rookie quarterback. He wouldn't have. That was the whole thing. He would have sit him for 2-3 years and played Geno for 2-3 years. But they again, now you're in a spot where you didn't address it. Just the same thing about you're not addressing the O-line. You the funny thing is you and me sit here, we're like, he has to take one this year. We could honestly go through another draft, you and me sitting here, and they don't take one. You and me thought they were going to take one last season.
I agree. I think, though, this is the caveat. I think personally that, and some people I've messaged to and talked to, John is like under hot collar. And I think, honestly, the O-line will be something that's going to get fixed, or at least a strong attempt to fix it properly. And I think he's going to be forced to take a quarterback, because whoever you bring in as the next play caller, that's the other caveat to this, amongst how we both feel about Geno. Yeah. He's going to want to potentially have a say, even if it's, say, Jake Peets, who's already on the staff. He may not be, the biggest fan of Geno, and he may like a Will Howard or a Riley Leonard or somebody. It's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. But, coaches that we, in this question here, we've been stuck on Geno. We kind of did a little bit on Grubb. Let's get off of this. We'll have more time to talk about it, obviously, as the offseason comes around. Coaches that won't be back. We know Grubb and Huff, we don't think will be back. And I'm almost certain Grubb is not going to be back. Rob Staten said the same thing too. Like, he is done. Like,
I'd like to throw Harbaugh in that mix too, to be honest with you, man. What a disastrous year.
The special teams, though, outside that one game with returners not holding onto the ball, they haven't been all that bad.
I mean, even yesterday, with Darden fielding the ball like the 3 on a punt. I mean, that again is special teams.
It is, but that's a point of, he may say to him, hey, like, you have a call. If you like it, then take it. Now, that's up to the player at the end of the day to make that decision if he's going to take it out or not, or do whatever. But if he lets it bounce and it goes out on the 3, we're in the same situation, right? Like,
but
I don't look at, but then you look at Kenny Mack yesterday. They put him back as kick returner, and all of a sudden Kenny Mack's getting the ball out to the 30-yard line plus. Like, I haven't seen enough outside that one game with Chenault and everybody and D. Williams fumbling their lives away. I think there is enough of a case to be made that Harbaugh can go one more year. Your special teams haven't been so damn devastating and horrible, and they haven't, cost you 1 million, points or games or whatever you want to call it. I agree they could be better, and I think there's a chance he could learn. And, don't forget, he got thrown a curveball coming from college to the new kickoff rules that we in the NFL put in this year. So I'm willing
that's pretty much
I'm willing to punt him to next year and see what he does. I'm very interested, to see if Dirty gets any potential buzz as a true DC somewhere else. I think Carl Scott might be off this coaching staff, and not because the DBs have been bad, because he's done actually a really good job with the DBs. You look at Josh Jobe, who's played quite well. But I think he has a chance to, because of how strong his connection is with Alabama, to get a job somewhere else, potentially as a DC. I'd like to see them keep Dirty. I hope they can keep Dirty. But really, it's on the offensive side. I think that's where you're going to see the most changes for this team, and which is warranted. I don't know. Like, here's the question, and we kind of, it ties into this. K9, man. Like, I think this running back draft class is deep.
I think you take one late.
I think you have to, and I think there's a 100%. Chance you could trade K9. I'm going to put that out there. I think there's a chance you get trade.
When do they got it? When do they? When's his contract up? He's got one more year, or
next year's his last year.
Okay,
he's in the last year.
So like you said, you're in the off season, good time where you could trade him. He's got the 1 year left. I agree, dude. I think K9. I've said it a long time ago, and I didn't want to be that guy right off the hop because people fell in love with this guy, right? We got our guy, but I just never fell in love with him. I'm like, he's a good back. Don't get me wrong, but and I brought up on the show a few weeks back, and we were reminiscing about running backs, and I brought up Chris Carson, and you love Chris Carson, and in that was a 7th round pick, talking about guys in the late rounds.
Yep.
And he just his mentality of hitting it, not dancing. And that's what Ken does. He dances. And it's like trying to teach, if anyone's tried to learn how to run track or run 100 meters and stuff like that, it's very technical. You're trying to teach somebody, if they haven't trained all their life and now trying to run a certain different way. That takes a lot. It's for him, it's just how he runs. To expect him to just completely change his tune on how he's going to run the football, his style of running, it's naive, man. Like, I think who talked about like when Sharps had that big breakout a couple weeks back, and like, oh man, maybe Ken's watching. Like, no, these guys are practicing together all the time. They know he knows how Sharps runs. It's not like that was just oh wow, that's how he runs a football. He ran for 100 and whatever. Like, okay, I'm gonna run like that. No, he's wired to run it a certain way, and that's who he is. And you know what? Maybe that'll fit on a certain style. But I think the mentality and the culture Mike wants is that's not the way he wants to run the football. So you're asking a guy to run a certain style that he's not used to running. So this is who he is. So you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I going to give this guy a second contract and for him to be my star back?
I don't think you do it.
No,
I'm sorry. I don't think you do it. I think you could potentially trade Ken Walker and get him mid-round pick.
How long have you been in that boat for?
Of trade Ken Walker?
Or just like he's not the guy to, because early, like in the offseason, we said, okay, this guy's a dynamic dude, which he is, but he just, I don't know. He's reverting back to a lot what he did in his rookie season.
He is. I started to fall off the Ken Walker bandwagon probably. It would have been, oh geez, when did he get initially hurt again?
Well, that's the other thing. He's on the shelf again. I mean,
like,
he's also
I don't know. Even at the beginning of this year, I could, I love what K9 can do when he's on and when he's going. but he's never healthy, and he constantly is causing he misses things. So there was a play in this game where he catches it on second down and it's a dump over the middle, and all he's got to do is turn around, go straight, and he probably maybe makes a guy miss straight ahead. Instead, he tries to bounce it out to the outside and gets tackled right in the spot. And it's like, dude, you could have had 3rd and 1, and now we're at 3rd and 4. And Kenny Mack runs
He looks
1 foot in the
good,
ground,
right?
go. Charbonnet 1 foot in the ground, go.
I'd be fine with Ken and Sharps until, like you said, and then you draft another young guy and maybe they get something. How much money you want to commit to Ken Walker? That's the thing. You can't. I don't think you can.
No, I don't. You can't. In my opinion, you can't. And that's the thing that's going to be interesting this offseason, is to see what they do, because Riq's up for his contract at the end, and we already talked about that earlier. Charles Cross, you have to make a decision on his extension. Peter, low-key grub problem. Insisting K9 is the lead back when Zach was hot after Arizona. Yeah, agreed. Zach should have been still being the main back and keep rolling with it, but they decided not to. Even yesterday, Zach, it was 3rd and 13, and Zach leaked out of the backfield to the left. Geno checked it down to him, and he got the first down.
Yeah.
That's Ken Walker. I don't know if that play happens the same way. And, there was another swing pass to Ken at a point, and he's going out, and Barner, and I think it was JSM, were blocking a dude, and he couldn't set, people saying, oh, he's trying to set up his blocks. Get north, south, and just go. Why are you running to the block that's there? You're running into this pile trying to, just get north, south, and get as much as you can. And so I don't know if K9 is going to be here long term. I think this, potentially next year is his last year in Seattle, and they'll move on if they don't trade him in the offseason. I think there will be more changes to this team than I think people are actually willing to be prepared for.
I think. Do you think people are maybe more willing to be prepared for it now? I think you might. I think I agree. I think if it was, well, even during the 4-game win streak, right? But then you kind of see, okay, wait a second, you evaluate this team. This team, the Hawks, if people don't know, they have 1 win against the winning teams, and that was the Denver Broncos in week 1. I don't think they win against Denver Broncos if they played them tomorrow.
No.
And so when you look at that, they were just fortunate. And so, for me, and I think even in the 4-game win streak, you still might say, you know what, we're pretty set in most places. O-line, you extend Geno. Now, honestly, dude, if we're talking offense, even halfway through the year, you'd say, okay, Walker. Now we're talking we might be switching up the running back room. We, obviously the O-line, the receivers, there's the jury's going to be out on how much you pay DK. I still think they sign him, but again, your tight end room's a big question mark. You could have a complete overhaul. Whereas the season before, you and I were and a lot of people were look, we have the pieces, we have the firepower, we just need a play caller to work with these dudes, because Shane Waldron was terrible. We got the 3-headed monster, DK, JSN, Tyler, the backs. Essentially, we came in with the same offense minus a couple different, backup tight ends. Noah Fant was supposed to be our guy now, especially in the Ryan Grubb offense, right? So
yeah, but that's the problem. The Ryan Grubb offense, it doesn't feature tight ends,
no,
at all.
No, but to my point, I think we're gonna blow this thing up. I'm talking offense, not blow it up, but
you're gonna see significant changes. I think you're gonna see Tyler, we know, is gonna be kind of
he's
retiring and so on. But let's get into our Q&A. We've been at this now for an hour, so let's get into our Q&A here. Mookie brought up a good one though, and this one I think is really kind of what we're talking about. I think the Seahawks have 2 timeline problems, and we'll have to pick a timeline. Are they rebuilding and further away than they think, or are they going to try and be a playoff contender? And that's literally what we're talking about. And that's what they're going to have to sit down and decide. And that's where I say this is really John Schneider's first, in my opinion.
Keep that question back up. Keep that question on there just so I can look at it.
Hold on 1 second. I'll go back to it. Give me 1 second.
Okay, well, I'll ask you this right now, man. Because I think if you choose A, the first part, no, are they going to try and make the playoff? The B part, That's what we've been trying to do the last
Yep.
8 years. Like, we're a couple of pieces away, guys. Are they gonna try to make a play? We're a playoff contender right now. If you look at it, we're still in it, but, like, is that a good thing? And I think at this point, you and I talked about it. Sometimes you need a little bit of pain, like to get really where you wanna be. We talked about this, man. This is a scary position to be in as a franchise. Middling is like the worst thing you can do because it teases you in a way too. Like you're thinking you're there, you're a few pieces away, but really you look at this team overall and the fact that we haven't won against a winning team really this year and our home record stinks. How are we even close? How are we even close? So if for me, I'm not saying blow the whole thing up, but drastically change a lot of stuff. If that means us having a couple struggling years, as long as you're the plan. But the other thing that I'll piggyback off Mookie's question, where you have to ask yourself, as a Hawks fan, is John Schneider the guy that's going to get it done? Because it's fine if you're not confident in the guy to do the rebuild. And so then if you're Seahawks fans, you might say, maybe I'm okay middling here. Because if John does blow this thing up, am I confident that John has an actual plan to now get this team 3 years from now 13 and whatever, 14 wins, 12, like a bright future? Or are we just back to having a mishmash of guys and we're 8 wins? That's what you really got to ask yourself.
So here's what I'm going to kind of allude to with John Schneider in this. So these are just some interesting, trends that I've kind of noted and kind of been taking notes of. So the last time the Seahawks made the NFC Championship game, 2014, right? That is currently the 5th longest drought in the NFC. The last time the Seahawks won a playoff game was 2019 versus Philadelphia. That is now the 6th longest drought in the NFC.
It's been bad, man. It's been bad.
And let me just keep going through this. The last time the Seahawks had a double-digit wins season was 2020, COVID. The last time the Seahawks won the NFC West was that same year. The last time the Seahawks drafted a first-team All-Pro was 2018. Michael Dixon, our punter. Playoff wins since 2017, 1. That ranks 23rd in the NFL over that span. So you talk about middling and we're not at some of these, we're not middling anymore. We're getting to the bottom of the barrel in a lot of these.
And I think
John Schneider, John Schneider, if he bombs this offseason like he bombed this one, he will be fired as GM of the Seattle Seahawks the following offseason if there isn't a massive improvement.
It's a tough question then, really, when you think about it, because I think Mookie's posing like, are they rebuild? But really, you think you got to look at, is John going to be here for either of those? Like, if there is a rebuild, like if I asked you this right now, if we were like this a full rebuild, I mean, it doesn't sound like either of us are confident that John can get it done. I think when I look at it too, and I brought this up about coaches, and I believe it's the same for GMs. You win a Super Bowl, your leash is just becomes super long. It's just very, very long because you won a Super Bowl, and that's all good. But still, man, that's a long time ago. So you talk about the great teams that they put together.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, dude, like you just brought up a bunch of stats. To me, that's just not good enough. You just can't hang your hat on that forever. And a lot of people, I think a lot of people are at their wits' ends with Schneider. And I agree with you, man. This is going to be an interesting offseason because I don't want to do the same thing this offseason we did last. I'm not even talking about how badly he signed free agency, but just a piece here and a piece there. And we'll bring in a vet here who's not very good, who's a cast off at guard. I want to see big changes, but big changes that are going to work. Like not just, I just did big changes. But I agree, man. But it's you and me are sitting here today, and we broke down the game a little bit, but it's a lot of frustration because you just, again, you're saying even if we make the playoffs or don't make the playoffs, you're going into this offseason like, what are we doing? Like where you're stuck in the middle. You brought these stats up, and you're just like you're trying to figure out. We talked about Geno and the quarterbacks. Even then, you're like, okay, if you signed, but then where's the next guy? It's hard when you're 9-8. Even if this was a good draft, if you're 9-8, you're picking at 16 again or 17 again. So, there was good quarterbacks last draft. We couldn't get one. So the John thing, man, like I wouldn't. I'm not calling for John, but again, I wouldn't lose sleep if I woke up and we had a new GM in the offseason. I don't know who that's going to be, but I agree. I don't think that will happen, but I think that he might have one more year if we have another.
He has to get it right. I'm telling you, he's going to have to get it right. There may be a chance if he doesn't if there isn't mass improvement in the O-line, and we're not saying he has to get a Super Bowl winning team next year, but it has to be a team that can get to the playoffs comfortably get to the playoffs and potentially get past the divisional round, or at least threaten to get past the divisional round. Not, okay, we got into the wild card and the expectation is win one playoff game. That's what it's been since the 2014 season, basically, is we need to get into the playoffs and we win one game, and we've done that once and then we're out. But let's get going.
Just real quick. My last thing I'll say is that to your point is that, and again, I just bring it all back with the Grubb, Schneider, and Geno, and I know Grubb won't be here. Then you got to say, if John does get it right, can Geno ride it? And that's just something for people to think about. Can you make a serious threat? I don't know. We'll see.
So Amy here, she goes, I'm okay keeping Geno with a plan for the future, and she's fine with K9, going. She's like
I said, the Geno thing is just like, I was fine with it in year one when it was like this guy was supposed to be the 2-3 year guy. I just, for me, it's like, now you're just gonna hang out with him for another 3. I just don't expect this team to make a serious run until you say we have a guy in the making coming up. Then I think you got some hope for the future. But until that happens, you're just extending him. That's how I look at it, and you just expect what you pay for, kind of thing. I mean, we're going to be 9-8 3 years in a row. So how can you have any other outlook, right? I mean, really, when you think about it, prove me wrong if you've done 3 years of essentially the same thing. You've done it a little differently, but the end result's the same. Yep.
Well, here we go. So Ben comes in with, a lot of people are saying the roster isn't good enough, but then they are mad at the results. What should we expect from this team? 11-6, 9-8, 13-4. I'm thinking you're still maxed out with the O-line the way it currently is and the play calling you had this year. You're 10. Now, again, like I said, if this gets fixed, Minnesota has a blueprint. You get a decent play caller. You fix your O-line and you have a comparable defense, and you win some games that maybe you're not expecting to win. We got to look at it this way. Minnesota's doing that in probably the toughest division in the NFL right now, in the NFC North. The NFC West is falling apart. The Rams, yes, they are currently the head top team this year. The 49ers are in cap hell coming up. The Cardinals, we've seen what they are. They're still not there yet.
No.
The Rams are going to maybe have this last run with Stafford, and then he's potentially going to, I think, maybe call it. And, Cooper Kupp's getting older. If you do fix it, there's a chance Seattle could really turn its future around. But like we've been saying, it comes down to the GM doing his job. And, there's Peter again. Love Peter's
I don't think it's an unpopular take.
It might be with some. It's not with us. There are holes even on this.
There's good players on this team. There's good players, and I think that doesn't mean you think this roster's great. It's an average roster, which with an average record. I mean, really, you got good players. Who brought it up? I think Staten brought it up. We don't have superstars on this team. We don't have we got some good players, but blue chip, we try to get DK in there, and people know that I love the guy, but there's still some things, right? And you're so if you're paying an admission to come and watch this team, is there game wreckers on the edge? There's good edge rushers. So I don't think it's an unpopular take at all, man. I think more people are jumping on board. Maybe I think you might have a 50-50 right now, with that take.
This team, the thing for the Minnesota game, and I'll say this quick before we get into more of these, the Minnesota game is exactly kind of a microcosm of this team. They are good enough to a point, but then their weaknesses show up, and it causes them to have major problems against the better teams that are fundamentally constructed.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting with Seattle. Seattle has areas they can compete with the top teams in. But when it puts you get the whole pie, Seattle's playing with half a pie and everyone else has a full pie. That's the way that it is right now for Seattle. Where is it here? This one from Elaine, or it might be Elaine or Alana. I'm not sure if I'm saying that wrong. Sorry.
Right,
Grub reminds me of Shane Waldron play calling. I think Grub might be worse.
It's the run. It's the running the ball that sticks out for us. Like
Yes.
it's like at least Shane tried to, and you had and there was
Shane
times
at least
where,
had creative play action.
But then
think about
this. Think about this, and I'm not defending Shane Waldron, and neither are you. But how many times, dude? At least Grubb has had a good running back every single game. There's a few times we were rolling out DJ Dallas because Ken Walker's on the shelf, and I think Sharps was on the shelf. Like, and then the year before, who was our backs? Who was our back the year before we drafted? When Walker was a rookie, it was Walker, and was it DJ?
No,
and again,
Penny.
It was Penny who was hurt.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that it's not, but he still tried to run it.
Yeah.
He still tried to run the ball, and we were just like, oh my God, Travis Homer and DJ Dallas. Like, so to at least to his credit, and that's the thing that sticks out. So, and that's the biggest thing when it's so obvious when you look at these run statistics and you're like, dude, like it's not rocket science why we're struggling. Just have a balance and it will be better. You know, we're not going to go, light the world on fire, but we're going to be better. So
when you're in a 3-point final score game and you came back from being down 2 scores, because there was a point where it was 17-7, there shouldn't be the discrepancy where your team in total has 13 rushing attempts, and one of those is your quarterback scrambling, to 43 passing attempts.
What was the final stats between Minnesota's running and our run game? Like, I don't know if you pull that up, but
read this one right now from Amy. I'll pull that up.
Okay, yeah, because it just shows you, like you said, the balance and what Minnesota does, which isn't anything unreal, right? And yes, they got a couple of great receivers.
Okay.
They got some great receivers, man.
Didn't take me long. I got it right here. So Geno finished 31 of 43 for 314, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Sam Darnold was 22 of 35. So it was 35 pass attempts for Sam Darnold. They had rushing. Where is it here? Rushing. So they had a total of, Sam Darnold had 5 carries for 11 yards. Aaron Jones had 18 carries on his own for 67.
Right.
And Cam Akers had 1 carry for 3 yards. So you add that together, 19. Roughly, you had 25 carries to the run game, and you had basically 13 for Seattle.
Right. Yeah.
So they essentially added 10 more touches on the ground, and you're including a JSN sweep on a jet.
That's right.
Ken Walker had 8 carries for 31 yards. Kenny Mack had 3 carries for 14. So think of that. Kenny Mack had 4.7 yards a carry. Ken Walker had 3.9. Zach had 1 carry. -1. Like, this is what I mean. Like,
I know.
It's grossly just, when you go and you look at Seattle and you look at their rushing thing in this, it's like 15 carries, 59 yards, 3.9 yards a carry. Minnesota, 24 carries, 81 yards, 3.4 yards a carry.
Right.
Like, they kept at it. That's the only difference.
They kept at it. Like we said, it wasn't like they were getting 1 yard a carry.
So let's go to this one from Amy here. So Grubb seems to have blinders. Beginning of the season, it was all DK. Now it's all JSN, and I truly don't believe he even scripts the beginning drives. No, I agree with you. And I will say this in this game, this was the first time you saw a bit of a DK JSN balance, and it worked to a point, and then they again go away from it, and it just
that was really the last that wasn't the 2 minute before the half, right? That's when you really saw it on display.
Pretty much, yep.
But I agree. You and I talked about it. It was DK, and then it was like JSN always unlocked, but like, where's DK? So
yep, exactly.
300%.
Here you go. Lou goes all season yelling at the TV, run the ball.
Yeah, we're
very
with you.
True. Very true.
We are with you.
Let's see what else. Here's a good one from Mookie. I wish the Hawks were in the wild card chase entirely because of Seattle's ability to win on the road.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, that
is sad. It is sad.
It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. And then the fact that Yeah, everyone talking about other teams coming in our house, that talk has to stop until this team puts a better product at home. I mean, I don't blame anybody for selling their tickets. Nobody.
This one's interesting from Nick. I think it's worthy of a potential conversation at a point. He goes, and Dan Quinn and the coaching staff, we could have had also making the playoffs.
Nah.
It's a fair point. Like, you think about it, everyone shit on Dan Quinn for hiring Cliff Kingsbury as an OC. Cliff Kingsbury is a pretty good OC. Like, he's got an ability to make a creative offense. Like you said, look what Jaden Daniels is doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, but would you rather have Quinn or Mike McDonald?
I would rather have. Can I do one and one half and one the other? Give me Mike McDonald and Cliff Kingsbury as my OC.
Oh, come on, dude! Like, yeah, I mean, I think
that would be the perfect situation.
Everybody would agree right now. Yeah, but that's the thing, because I think Quinn was like, we just didn't want to go there again. So we were just like,
I agree.
Been there, done that. So,
and I don't think Mike McDonald's the problem. I think Mike McDonald's actually doing a good job.
I think to Nick's point is that, you know what? Be happy for Quinn, what he's doing in Washington. I think it's great. You're taking an organization that's really sort of struggled and been middle of the pack, and now they got a young dude who looks like he could be a superstar in Jaden, and Quinn seems to fit there. And you got Bobby Wagner there and stuff like that. I don't honestly, if you threw Quinn in here, like maybe like you said with Cliff, sure, but who knows, man? Like, you talk about this O-line, this
is what I'm going to say that's interesting. One quarterback, we talk about Jaden Daniels and we talk about Bo Nix in Denver, what he's doing with Sean Payton, which, by the way, Sean Payton's offense, people have forgotten how good Sean Payton is as a play caller, as much as he's a piece of crap human being for the way he did treat Russ, which was, in my opinion, incorrect on how he did do that. He does design a good offense. Drake May has actually been playing really well in New England, and that guy is going to be, if they can get some pieces around him, he is going to be a problem, I think, for a lot of teams in the NFL. Just, we're talking about Penix and Daniels.
It just goes back to my point. Like those are franchises to get.
But look where those teams were picking, and I get what you're saying about the fact
the 5th overall pick.
Right, and the thing is when we look about when they took Witherspoon, there was all the talk that they may have taken Anthony Richardson, but we got to remember CJ Stroud was off the board.
No, my point was, do whatever it took.
Yeah, but that was the point where that one, I don't think you were going to move up. Like, I wish we could have. I would have loved CJ Stroud.
We
were left with Will Levis, but
man, to me, it was just like, that was you don't draft top 5 much, right? And so like, I'm just saying, and I like Spoon, but it could be a generational pick. Did they do anything they can to move up? Was that even?
Well, you never know. Maybe Anthony Richardson becomes available this offseason. We're able to trade for him. You don't know with how he's done in New England or Indianapolis. There, they might move off him.
Yeah, and like I
said,
this
is another good one from Mookie.
Was just like again, he could have been so much different here, and then you wouldn't even have seen him play yet. That was the thing.
Nope. Agreed. So Mookie here. The skill position players on this team who get north-south are not fast, and the ones who try to dance are the fastest ones on the team. Less the sum of the parts. Yeah, it's very true. Like, that's the reality of it. Just, if we had our fast guys get north-south, we'd be in a lot better situation.
It's wiring, man. It's wiring. Like, it's you're either built a certain way or you're not. Yeah, it's like trying to tell Riq to be a dog. Like, you don't teach that stuff. So it's the same thing with Ken Walker. This is who you drafted. This is the guy that's his style. Riq has a style. Spoon has a style.
So
and that's why you and I are going to be like, they're going to move. They should move on, and probably should. They don't see Ken here long term, and they should probably draft another guy. Bring him in.
Yep. And actually, that's a point. I'm just going to bring it up quickly. Brendan Myers, we'll get back to that one. Brendan Myers, I think you can get an RB in day 3 if you don't keep Ken. Yep, totally agree in this draft. Good running back class. Mookie comes in. New OC could unlock Barner as a 50-catch-a-year guy. AJ Barner has been a big surprise this year. I've been really impressed with that guy. Peter jumps on it as well. Barner is a nice surprise. Sort of not great blocker, but good pass catcher. What he was brought in to be.
He's also young. He's also
young. I think he's going to develop as a blocker. I think he's going to get better than what he is.
Yeah, you're going to expect some of that in year 1 from a super young guy for sure.
This is an interesting one from Brendan. When is Jody going to actually sell the team? That's a good question now.
Yeah, it is, man. I think, well, like I go back to this too. Like I think when they made the Russ trade and stuff like that, you're like, hey, okay, she's doing stuff, or the Pete firing. But now it's like because like you just don't know how involved she is, and that's the thing. And it's sort of like, do you care? You just so it is a legit question. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
I think there's a chance within the next 5 years this team potentially gets sold. That's what I'll say. I think it'll be interesting, and I think if Bezos doesn't, and this is the guy I've kind of
You
always been
want
interested in.
Bezos? Would you want Bezos?
I don't know if you want Bezos, but I think Bezos is probably going to be the one. If he doesn't get a team soon, that's what I think he's waiting for, is to come back and be the Seahawks owner.
I just don't like the dude. Like, what
Yeah,
I
I
mean?
know.
Like I think just find another billionaire that loves Seattle. No, I'm serious. I mean, there's other dudes.
I know.
I
It'll be
know the
interesting.
Bezos thing is his name's been tossed around, but man, I don't know, dude.
So here we go. Nick comes back with this one, which is interesting. Sadly, at this point, I think it's fair to say Pete would have done better this year. I don't think so. I think there's a chance we were potentially worse this year.
You're sort of like you're sort of I don't know, you're nitpicking at this point.
You're
Like,
nitpicking at that one a little bit there, Nick.
8-9, 9-8. Like
I don't think there would have been
we are.
anything because he would have rolled back potentially the same staff too in a lot of ways. And Shane Waldron and that staff went to Chicago and didn't do so hot.
I don't think this whole show we haven't brought up Mike McDonald, because I think you and I are like, listen, we believe in this guy long term.
Look what he's done with the defense. He's actually got the defense turnaround, which is what his main thing was. The reason we hired the dude was to fix the defense. Now,
yeah, he's not going to
that's
fix
the thing
everything
too. Is
want.
John Schneider had, I think, and I was talking with Dan about this today. I think what you can see is Mike had more influence on who he hired on the defensive side of the staff. John Schneider had more say in the offensive side, because the fact that Brady Henderson came out in his recent article and said they had to convince Mike McDonald of Ryan Grubb to be able that he could prove to be balanced, and he hasn't been balanced. So it's not going to work out. Mookie comes back with another one. Want to know how incapable the Seahawks have been at building big leads? They've only had 33 offensive snaps, up by at least 17 points since 2002. That ranks 31st, ahead of only the Titans.
That's a hell of a stat.
And as Peter comes in, oh no, not Peter, sorry, Brandon here, he goes, Jesus, that's a miserable stat. And it is. That is, oh my.
Yeah, it's just, it just sums up like just what this is. I don't know, man. And like I said, I'm not a Geno hater. I think he's a good quarterback, but I just think it's just a combination of everything. I just think, I don't know, man. I think I just wouldn't be upset if we just went in a different direction. I just want to be excited about something again, man. I just don't know if I'm going to get excited with him here another 2-3 seasons. And I'm not saying you cut him and you don't have a plan. That's not what I'm saying. I think I'm just frustrated, like a lot of fans, that, and again, not directed right at Geno, but also Schneider, I just wish he would have addressed this and the O-line a lot earlier. Like, we have to get to this point now where his job is potentially on the line to say, oh yeah, maybe I should fix the O-line. Again, to me, he's hid behind Pete a little too long, and he's been able to be a little comfortable because Geno Smith's a serviceable quarterback that can get you close to 10 wins and maybe squeak you in the playoffs. It's like when Kirk Cousins with Minnesota all those years, and they were going to get you in the playoffs, and they were close, and they were pretty good, and that was it. And to me, that's where we're at. And John is sort of rode that, plus that he won a Super Bowl. So with all that combination, it just allows him to be the GM for so long without any questions. So to me, it's just, I don't know. I don't get it. Like, now your job has to be on the line. And that's frustrating part. So it's not really directed right at Geno, but it's something where I'm like, it's hard for me to get excited if we come back next season, unless you got this primetime play caller, right? So I don't know who that is yet. We'll see. That's going to be an interesting thing about the offseason. But to get excited, it's going to be tough, man. When we go 3 9-8 in a row, and that's why, do we really blow up this offense? We have a whole new looking offense with Geno and an all-star OC. Okay, maybe you get excited, but if that doesn't happen, it's tough, man. I mean, what's your thought on that?
I think I don't know if you need an all-star play caller. And I don't think you're going to find an all-star play caller. But if you get a NFL caliber play caller and you get and this is one thing, it kind of ties into two here. So I'm just going to go off this. So Peter's told Mookie enough with the bad stats. It's getting a little too much. But Jody comes here and says, F it, go with John Gruden for OC. So I read something, from John Gruden when he first was with the Raiders, not last stunt that he lost the job in, but when he was first with them. And one thing he said was, your O-line coach does not need to be an expert in pass protection. He needs to be an expert in the run game and how to create a run game. That's what I want to see. And that's what, with you look at Tom Cable when he was here, and, Tom Cable, after they changed the NFL rule, struggled with the adjustment. But Tom Cable, those first couple of years, like 2011, when he came in basically to 2014, we could run the football. We imposed, and yes, we had Marshawn Lynch, but the O-line and that group, it didn't matter who we plugged in, could run block, create space, create running lanes. We haven't had that for a while. And, Mike Solari a little bit when we had Solari, we had a run game. That's what I want. The next play caller, I want him to have a pipeline to a good O-line coach that's going to be able to say yes or no on guys, and this is how we're going to block up our run game and gain 4 yards, 3 yards a carry every single time we hand the ball off.
Yeah, Brandon Myers saying we're 2 years behind the 8 ball. That's what I'm saying. And then with Lou goes, Geno's not the problem. And hey, no, I'm not sitting here saying he is, but like we said earlier, not the problem or the solution. It gets you where you are, right? But then he comes back, and then his Christmas wish list, and this has been our list the whole year, our wish list the whole year. No hero ball. It's okay to dirt it, throw it out of bounds. But to my point, he doesn't have it in him, man. And he's proven that he feels like he needs to play hero ball. And that's my big gripe about him, where he looks good and then he feels like he's got to be hero. So my thing is, I'm done with those excuses, because you can say, well, look, when you have an O-line like this, you feel like you have to, but he's got to know. My biggest thing is, you've been in the league for 10, 11 years now. I'd be more okay with that with a younger quarterback and trying to learn the NFL and feel like you don't have to do it, Geno. But when he's rolling out and doing those things, like the pick yesterday, he rolled out. There wasn't a ton of pressure on the guy, and he threw it right to the defender. Those type of things shouldn't happen at this point. So though it's my gripe.
So I've got a caveat on that, because I watched that one multiple times over. First off, with that, Minnesota knew what was coming as soon as they went under center and fake to the left. You watch the linebackers, they don't even take a true step forward to think it's run. They bail into their zones. Everything in the middle of the field was covered. Then you get to Noah Fant, who we've had our own gripes with. If you're going to commit to outside and your quarterback's on the scramble, stay to the outside. He does this stupid stop, hesitate, in, out. And when Geno lets go of the ball, Noah is heading outwards, and he stops and tries to cut in, and the defender just sits there and skips in front of it. That is a problem, is when you have guys that aren't doing things right, but also when the defense bloody well knows what you're doing. And I agree. He got out on the run. He could have thrown it away.
That's all I'm saying.
Let go of that ball. If you go back and watch it, when he lets go of the ball, Noah Fant is running to the sideline. And if he keeps running to the sideline, he at least is in the way of the defender. After the ball's about 3/4 of the way there, Noah Fant's turned and gone back inside.
Okay, well then this should be blow up this offense. If nobody knows how to run routes and gets on the team,
exactly my point.
But we hear this about DK running the wrong route again. But again, I go back to saying, you want to talk about Fant didn't come back to the ball. What about the picks that Minnesota dropped? Where's the excuse there? Are we like we're just, it's too many excuses is what I'm saying. Like, let's not sit here and say none of it's on Geno. I'm not saying
none of it's on Geno. I agree with you.
But what I'm saying, like, okay, Minnesota should have picked him off 4 times. You want to talk about DK, you want to talk about all this stuff, you have to take some blame. And that's all.
Well, Geno's the first one that took blame in his press conference.
Well, of course, because you're the leader. You're going to say it. You have to say it.
But the thing that I look at, and this is the thing, and this is where I say you do have to blow up this offense to a point, is when teams like one of the biggest gripes I have with his team is that everything is deep. There's nothing easy in the passing game. Yes, there's moments where our guys are wide open, but it's not consistent enough.
I agree
And
with
that's
that
on your
too.
OC, and that's on the play
agree.
calling.
Well, that's why we're saying Grubb's playing. We hope that he's 2 more games, because I agree with all that. So I feel like it's okay to criticize Geno Smith without. I feel like some people are on this boat. Like, if you're criticizing Geno Smith, you're automatically a hater. And I'm not saying you're saying this. I'm saying some people will look at that, and it's like you can't say anything about the guy, because when you break this down, you get pressure here. Yeah, quarterbacks get pressured. Guys, but he has a pretty high interception to touchdown ratio. Some of that has to fall on him. You can't sit there. Fans can't sit there and say the Rams game, none of that was him. He's throwing red zone picks. You can break down the film and say this guy got held, Barner got held over here. I'm sorry, the other pick, you got to put some of this on Geno Smith. And if you're not, then fine. This is what you're gonna get. Like, you can blow
I
up.
agree. You have to put some of it, but the thing is, when
And
we
that's
look
all
at
I'm doing. That's all I'm doing.
I know, and I get what you're doing, and I get people that want to say none of it's on him, and I'm not in that boat. But what I'm saying is, when we look at the totality of the entire picture here, and we're going to wrap this up tonight soon. When you look at the entire picture, you're asking and I'm going to put this out there, a non-top 5 quarterback to play like a top 2 quarterback. What Grubb has asked of Geno, behind how crappy this O-line is, and John Schneider and this organization has asked Geno, is to go out and be Josh Allen, basically, and that's not what Geno is. He is going to be a guy that you're going to have ups and downs with, so you need to find a way to balance that out. And you don't want to take out the gunslinger in him, because he makes throws down the field, like you said, in those 2 drives to DK, to JSN. You don't want to get him to be gun shy. But you know how you limit the bad throws that you're talking about, where he makes those? You have a run game. You have that kind of stuff. And that's where I'm saying, like, where, again, we're both saying the same thing from different perspectives. Geno's not necessarily the solution, but he's definitely not the problem. And I think you would still see a lot of these problems with other quarterbacks behind the shitty offensive line.
Possibly, you're right. Possibly, for sure. But all I'm saying is that, and like you've said everything that I've said. Like, I'm yelling at Grubb to run the football. I understand that they have to run the football. They're making him throw the ball way too many times. But I get my criticism is just some of the decisions overall, and I'm not blaming every single pick on Geno Smith. But like I said, we've talked about it the whole show. It's a combination with Schneider. It's a combination of Grubb. We both sit here and say Ryan Grubb probably has 2 games left calling plays for the Seahawks. John Schneider is on the hot seat coming into this offseason. So yes, he's very limited in what he can do, Geno Smith. But like I said, if you're okay and not frustrated again that John Schneider hasn't addressed this issue, Geno Smith was supposed to be a 2 to 3 year quarterback here. He really was. Nobody thought this guy was going to be a 6-year quarterback. So again, if you extend him, it's the state of the franchise. So if anybody, I'm not hating on the guy. I don't think he's the problem. I don't think he's the solution. It's fine. Exactly what he is. But again, you're looking at it with a ton of questions again, when you should be ahead of the 8 ball a little bit. You're way behind it as a franchise as a whole. So again, it's a little more complex. No one's just sitting here saying it's Geno, it's this and this. It's a lot of things. Yeah, Ryan Grubb's done a horrible job. Shane Waldron didn't do a great job, but at least we tried to run the football. Geno Smith, again, 2022 and 23 had inconsistent years. He had great first halves, great second halves in each of those years. It's not like he had a solid year and then he's come back and it's just been a disaster. I think he is who he is. He's a good quarterback. Nobody's not saying that. But again, he's going to get you so far. So what's the long-term plan at quarterback? And that's what we have to look at in the offseason. And so hopefully John addresses those 2 main issues. For me, that's my wish list, is that you address the offensive line. And like you and I have talked about that, hopefully they bring in a veteran good guard and then work the draft a little bit, and then try to get that ball rolling at quarterback. Like you said, at least take a guy. You threw 2 guys out there. At least step up to the podium and call a guy's name. I'm serious. And then Geno Smith, You sign him for 2 years, fine.
I'm sorry, I got to laugh at this one from Brandon Myers here. New plan, get Joe Burrow. I'd be on that boat, Brandon. I don't know what it would take, but it'd take a lot. But so let's just do something quick because, obviously, guys, it's the holidays coming up here in the next couple of days. The Seahawks play on the 26th on Boxing Day, so we're not really going to be able to fit in a preview show prior to that game, but we will have a post-game show following the Bears game. Ryan, what do you think is going to happen with the Chicago Bears game coming up in a couple days?
Oh, man, it's a short week for us. I think that's a good thing, just to kind of, as far as like this one stung. I think everybody knew on that team that this one got away. This is a game that they were in, and they could have won this game. And just a lot of mistakes mentally, things we've talked about. So I really think that we can go in and take care of business against Chicago. But it's not going to be an easy task. I think we got to come out, we got to play, and we got to clean some stuff up. I just want to see a lot of the mental errors go away. The amount of false starts we had at home was crazy. Just little things, Trey Brown line out, like we got to clean that stuff up. And we got to play a clean game. But I'm expecting to win. I'm excited for the game. I'm excited for the short week because honestly, man, after yesterday, a game that I thought that we could have won, I just want to get back on the field and see these guys play.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it could be a get right game. It'll be interesting because who knows if Walker plays, and maybe that's a good thing because maybe that means more runs for Charbonnet and for Kenny Mack and Helwani. It gets us 1 week closer to the potential end of the Ryan Grubb era. But I think the Seahawks can pull it out. The biggest thing will be we'll know exactly what our playoff fate is. On Saturday, we won't have to wait till Sunday.
Cardinals game.
Cardinals, everyone I would see us tune in. We're hoping the Cardinals can pull out a win over the Rams because if they do, it gives us an opportunity to have Week 18 be win and you're in kind of situation.
It doesn't come down to the last game of the season 3. If this plays out, that would be 3 years in a row where we come down to the last game of the season.
Yes,
we played the Rams 2 years ago. We finished the season against the Rams. Was that when we got in the playoffs? Am I mixing it up? We needed that Green Bay Detroit game. Green Bay lost, and then we got in. That was the first year we got in.
That was, and
it's come down to every single last.
Yeah,
so, listen, as much as you and I are debating and talk, you get frustrated. We throwing stats out. We don't want to be a middling franchise, but at the end of the day, we're Seahawks fans. We want to see them in the playoffs. There's nothing more exciting than Seahawks football. Because you still got hope for this team. I love a lot of players on this team, whether they're going to be back or not. Sometimes you just need big changes because it's best for the organization. So you know what? We'll see what happens, but I'm hoping we come.
Peter says here, how about we get to the playoffs without some convoluted multi-team race, just win on our own and get in. And that's kind of what we've been dealing with. So it'd be nice, and maybe
we had that opportunity, but we did. Now really the Rams control their destiny. So we need a little help here. But yeah, man. I mean, hey, listen, at the end of the day, to shed a positive light on this thing, we're still playing meaningful football here coming up here after Christmas. So that's a good thing. So, a lot of questions are going to be answered in the offseason. We're going to talk a lot about that in the offseason. It's going to be a more interesting offseason than the last offseason. We thought that was crazy. This is going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it will be. And, as much as this season's been fun because it's been so up and down and all over the place, I'm looking forward to, getting into the mock drafts and stuff and start really diving into the offseason a little bit and just see where this team goes and see what this offseason, kind of brings for us in a way. But we still got 2 games to play and hopefully maybe a third. It'll be interesting. But guys, make sure go check over at our, merchandise store, hawkstonerundown.com. We got hats. We got toques even. We got can want different logos, different styles. And yeah, guys, make sure to subscribe, like the channel, share it with any fellow Seahawk fans, out there, and we'll be back Thursday, Boxing Day. I think it's Thursday's Boxing Day. Yep. We'll be back for our live post-game show following the Bears-Seahawks game.
Yeah, guys. So that's it for us. It was a long one, but it was good. A lot of stuff to get off our chest. We appreciate everyone chiming in with the comments, man. Love the honesty. And that's it, man. We just keep bringing you guys this. We're going to have different opinions, but that's what makes this show roll. And we appreciate everybody that was tuning in, throwing out questions, hanging out, and let's go get a win this Thursday night. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.